Let me ask you something no one dares to confront in public. Why is it that truly intelligent people, those who see too much, think too clearly, and feel too deeply, almost always end up isolated, mocked, ignored, or even feared? Is it because they're wrong? Or because they see through illusions most people need to survive? You see, from the very moment you start asking questions that go deeper than the surface, society doesn't lean in with curiosity, it pulls away with discomfort. And not because intelligence is offensive in itself, but because what intelligence reveals forces people to rethink the foundations of their lives. And that is terrifying. If you're honest with yourself, haven't you ever noticed how society subtly punishes the ones who notice too much? The ones who ask why we go to jobs we hate, why we live in systems that exploit us, why we chase pleasures that leave us empty. These aren't just abstract questions. They are psychological earthquakes. And when someone starts asking them aloud, even gently, you can feel the shift in the room. A quiet tension. A warning. Society's immune system activates, not to protect the truth, but to protect the illusion. We've been taught to praise intelligence, but only when it's safe, when it fits into a neat box labeled success or talent or genius that serves the current power structures. But the kind of intelligence that questions the structure itself, that kind of mind is not invited to the table. It's exiled, labeled difficult, weird, or too intense. That's because society is not built to celebrate truth, it's built to sustain stability. And stability often demands delusion. Think about it. What happens when a child keeps asking why past the age where it's cute? At first, adults smile, but eventually they grow irritated. The questions become uncomfortable. The child begins to poke at things no one wants to explain: death, hypocrisy, inequality, freedom. And slowly the lesson is learned. Asking too many questions makes people uncomfortable. So the child stops, or pretends to. That's the first death of intelligence, the moment we learn to edit our minds to fit in. But some of us never stop. Some of us keep questioning. And those who do, we're seen as a threat not to others personally, but to the fragile framework that keeps people functioning.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This is where the tragedy begins. Extraordinary intelligence is not just the ability to solve equations or speak eloquently. It's the ability to see layers, to hold contradictions, to trace the invisible lines between cause and effect, to realize that most people aren't living lives, they're repeating scripts. Scripts handed down from parents, schools, churches, media. And when you see that clearly, you can no longer play the game without cost. Your smile becomes heavier, your words slower. You hesitate because you realize that most conversations aren't meant to discover truth, but to protect belief. And here's the kicker: people can feel that you see it. Even if you don't say a word, your presence becomes confrontational. They sense that you are not hypnotized like they are, and they will resent you for it. So what does society do with you? It doesn't burn you at the stake like it once did, but it does something more insidious. It isolates you. It labels you. It reduces you to eccentricity. You're too much, too intense, too sensitive, too cerebral. You're told to lighten up, be normal, stop overthinking. But let me ask you, is the world suffering from too much thinking? Or not nearly enough? Is the problem that too many people ask why, or that too few ever do? Intelligence, especially when it evolves into wisdom, becomes radioactive in a society addicted to surface. Because it disrupts, it unveils, it demands accountability. And that makes the intelligent person a walking contradiction, admired from afar, but avoided up close. And so many intelligent people do something heartbreaking. They shrink. They camouflage. They dumb themselves down in social situations. They pretend not to care about philosophy or art or politics so they can keep the peace. They learn to translate their thoughts into digestible cliches just to be accepted. And slowly, without even realizing it, they become ghosts of themselves present, but not fully alive. But here's the thing, ghosts don't haunt the world. They haunt themselves. Their minds never shut off, and their hearts ache for meaning. They live in the tension between their true self and their social mask, and the longer they wear the mask, the harder it becomes to take it off. So what do? If we are the ones who think differently, feel more deeply, ask the forbidden questions, what is our role in a world that fears exactly that? Do we retreat entirely? Do we yell from the rooftops? Or is there another way? Nietzsche believed that the truly awakened person must learn to live dangerously, not in the physical sense, but in the intellectual and spiritual sense. He called for the creation of the free spirit, the one who does not ask for permission to think, the one who risks rejection, isolation, even madness in pursuit of clarity. And that spirit must learn to walk the tightrope between solitude and connection, between honesty and compassion. Because while society may fear extraordinary intelligence, it desperately needs it. It is the intelligent who invent, who heal, who question, who evolve. But it's also the intelligent who bleed, who doubt, who stand at the edge of the abyss and whisper questions most people will never hear. And maybe that's the role we've been avoiding, not to be accepted, but to illuminate, not to argue, but to reveal. Because once you see the truth about how deeply society fears thought, your task changes. You are no longer just thinking for yourself. You are thinking for the ones who can't. You are giving form to the questions others can't articulate. You are holding space for the complexity they don't have words for. And that is not arrogance, that is service. The true philosopher, the true sage, the true outlier doesn't seek power. He seeks truth. And truth, by nature, divides. It separates illusion from clarity, comfort from growth, belief from being. But that division isn't meant to shame. It's meant to wake, to pierce, to challenge the sleepwalking masses not with cruelty, but with courage. And that courage starts with you, with owning the fullness of your mind, with refusing to shrink just because your thoughts disturb shallow water. If your presence stirs ripples, then let it. If your silence makes people nervous, let it. If your questions expose cracks in their worldview, let them shatter. Because you were not made to decorate the surface. You were made to dive deep. And now I want you to ask yourself the hardest question yet. Have you been hiding your intelligence to fit in? Have you betrayed your own insight just to be loved? Have you kept quiet not out of wisdom but out of fear? If so, you are not alone. Many of the most brilliant souls in history did the same until they couldn't. Until the weight of their own truth became too heavy to carry in silence. And when they finally spoke, the world trembled. Some were exiled, some were jailed, some were killed. But every single one of them left a mark that still burns centuries later. That is the real power of extraordinary intelligence. It cannot be erased, only feared. When you wake up, the world tries to put you back to sleep, the hidden war on inner clarity. Let's speak the truth nobody wants to face. Most people are not living, they are acting. They're playing a role written by someone else, improvising their way through a stage they never auditioned for. And if you happen to walk in with eyes that see through the set walls, with ears that hear the silence between the lines, you're not welcomed as a seer, you're treated as a threat. Society doesn't reward awareness. It rewards alignment. It doesn't nurture intelligence, it tames it. Extraordinary intelligence is frightening not because it is wrong, but because it is right too early. And the moment you see things before others do, your very presence reminds them of what they've chosen not to see. That's why society doesn't kill the wise man anymore, it discredits him. It mocks him. It starves him of attention until he either plays along or fades away. But make no mistake, the suppression of deep intelligence is not accidental. It is systemic. Because once you think for yourself, you stop being a consumer, a voter, a believer, a pawn. You become unpredictable, and unpredictable people can't be controlled. This is why you feel tension in ordinary places. Have you ever been in a room where everyone laughs at something shallow, but you can't? Not because you're rude, but because something about it feels hollow, forced, mechanical. That's not your arrogance. That's your intelligence refusing to bend. Your mind refuses to go where it doesn't belong, and that refusal is the beginning of resistance. But here's where it gets dangerous when you start acting on your thoughts. Society can handle a philosopher thinking in private. But once you start living your philosophy, once you build a life based on authenticity instead of approval, you become radioactive. They don't just disagree with you, they try to neutralize you. Why? Because your courage becomes a mirror. It reflects everything they haven't dared to confront. And that mirror doesn't just show people who you are, it shows them who they are not. And still, we wonder why so many brilliant minds become reclusive, anxious, even nihilistic. It's not because they can't handle life. It's because they see too much of it. They see the lies in advertising, the contradictions in education, the games in relationships, the emptiness in status. And once you see the strings, it's hard to dance like the others. But let me ask you this, is that sight a curse or a calling? Because what if your distance isn't weakness, but training? What if your discomfort in shallow spaces isn't dysfunction, but sensitivity? You're not broken for not fitting in. You're awake. And being awake in a world that worships sleep is not a pleasant experience. It's an exile, but it's a holy one. Because from that exile, real vision is born. Nietzsche once said, "They muddy the water to make it seem deep." That's society's strategy. Create confusion, overstimulate with information, replace wisdom with data, and drown awareness in noise. Why? Because confusion makes people dependent. But clarity? Clarity makes people free. And free people are dangerous not to others, but to systems. So every time you feel the pull to conform, to stay silent, to shrink your mind to make others comfortable, understand this, that pull isn't about kindness. It's about containment. You are being asked to amputate parts of your mind in exchange for social acceptance. And every time you say yes to that deal, a part of your soul dies quietly. Now think, how many times have you smiled when you wanted to question? Nodded when you wanted to challenge? played along when you knew better. That's not intelligence being celebrated. That's intelligence being sedated. We do it so often that we forget it's happening. But there's a cost, a spiritual erosion, a kind of inner corrosion that slowly eats away at the very brilliance we were given. And the longer you hide your depth, the more it turns against you. What was once insight becomes isolation. What was once clarity becomes bitterness. But it doesn't have to, because your intelligence isn't here to be buried. It's here to liberate you. The question is, are you brave enough to live by your own mind? Because here's what most people never realize: true intelligence isn't just about how much you know. It's about how honestly you live. You can have a PhD and still be asleep. You can be book smart and life blind. Real intelligence is moral. It questions the systems we serve. It challenges the truths we're told. It asks, is this real? Is this right? Is this mine? And the minute you start asking those questions and refusing to fake the answers, you begin to ascend, but not in the way they promised. Not with applause or trophies or followers. You ascend into solitude, into sovereignty, into that terrifying space where you no longer need anyone to validate your sight. And that's where the real war begins. Because once you become sovereign, once you no longer need the system, it will try to pull you back. Not with violence, but with seduction. It will offer you comfort, titles, likes, love, security, all in exchange for just a little blindness. Don't think too much, it whispers. Don't go too deep. You'll be happier that way. But will you? Will you really? Or will you end up haunted by the version of yourself that didn't sell out? The version that stood up, spoke out, broke away? Because make no mistake, that version of you is watching. And every time you betray your intelligence to make others comfortable, that version turns its face away in shame. So ask yourself, are you building a life that your highest self would salute? Or are you building one that makes your soul cringe in silence? You don't need to change the world with your intelligence. You just need to stop hiding it. Let it show. Let it shine. Let it burn. Even if it scares people. Especially if it scares people. Because truth, real truth, always unsettles before it liberates. And your truth might be the spark someone else needs to finally wake up. Let the world feel your mind, not to dominate it, but to remind it. Remind it that awareness is still possible. That clarity is still holy. That questions still matter. That depth still exists. And most of all, that the ones who see too much are not broken, they are necessary. You were never meant to fit in, you were born to expose the lie. Let's finish what we started, because now we are walking on the final edge. And this edge, it's not theoretical. It's not poetic. It's personal. Right now, deep inside you, there is a fracture. A split between the person you are and the person you're still afraid to become. And that fracture? It grows wider every time you deny your intelligence, every time you downplay your insight, every time you choose comfort over truth. And you feel it, don't you? You feel it in the silence of rooms where no one is asking real questions. You feel it in conversations where everyone talks and no one says anything. You feel it when you scroll through 1,000 images of shallow success and ask yourself, is this it? Is this what we've become? That pain is the pressure of unexpressed intelligence. That ache is what happens when a mind made to explore galaxies is forced to live inside a mall. Society doesn't just fear extraordinary intelligence, it needs to fear it. Because extraordinary intelligence cannot be governed. It cannot be predicted. It cannot be sold back to you in a commercial. And worst of all for society, it cannot be made to obey without killing its essence. You were not built for obedience. You were built for observation. You were built to make patterns visible. You were built to challenge silence, to speak truths that others whisper only in the privacy of their nightmares. And that means you are going to walk alone. Not always, but often. You will be misunderstood. You will be called intense, complicated, arrogant, or cold. But that's not because you are wrong. It's because your clarity burns too brightly in rooms that worship dimness. You see what others pretend not to see. And in a world that builds its safety around denial, you are a threat simply by telling the truth. But here's what no one teaches you, that exile is not the end. It's the beginning of authentic vision. Because once you're free from the need to be liked, you can finally tell the truth not just to others, but to yourself. And that truth is this: you were not born to fit into this world. You were born to reshape it, not through violence, not through domination, but through perception. The way you see clearly, painfully, precisely is the most radical act of rebellion there is. You were meant to look at the lie and say, "I see you." You were meant to take the script and burn it, or to write your own, and then to live it with such intensity that everyone who watches you has no choice but to question their own. But here's the danger: intelligence without courage decays into bitterness. Awareness without action becomes torment. You can spend your life seeing everything wrong with the world and do nothing, and the weight of that knowledge will crush you. That's why so many brilliant minds collapse into nihilism. Because they wake up, but then they wait. They wait for permission, for support, for the right time. And the longer they wait, the heavier it gets. You cannot wait. You cannot beg. You must move, speak, build, create, lead. Not because you want to, but because you have to. Because the alternative is slow suicide. And maybe that's the most important truth of all: intelligence isn't a gift. It's a responsibility. If you can see farther, you must walk first. If you can feel deeper, you must hold stronger. If you can think clearer, you must speak louder. The pain you feel, it's not just yours. It belongs to everyone who hasn't found their voice yet. You're not alone in your awareness. You're just early, but the others are waking up too. Slowly, quietly, one thought at a time. And when they do, they'll need someone to look to. Not a celebrity, not an influencer. A lighthouse. A reminder that intelligence is not a burden, it's a path. And it leads not to fame or fortune, but to something far more powerful: freedom. So here's the real question: have you been using your intelligence to protect yourself or to liberate others? Because one path leads to a prison with velvet walls. The other leads to a storm, but through that storm, there is sky. There is space. There is flight. You were not given extraordinary intelligence to win arguments. You were given it to awaken souls. And if you suppress it, you don't just betray yourself, you rob the world of what only you can see. So stop hiding. Stop diluting. Stop asking for permission to be fully awake. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mock you. Let them fear you. Because one day, long after they've forgotten the safe, comfortable thinkers who played by the rules, they'll remember the one who saw the truth and had the courage to live by it. That one is you.